Welcome back to the Inspired Writer Collective podcast. Right now, we're doing our short summer episodes, which is really fun because we're doing it in this beautiful space. This is Stephanie's home in Colorado, and we get to do them together, which has been so different, so fun. So, this has been really great to be able to do this, at least from our perspective. And we'd love to hear some feedback about what you guys think. If you want to see a little bit more of this in our shared episodes throughout the fall season, let us know. Today, we're going to spend just a short time talking about where we're showing up on social media. So there's always like this debate for writers. And recently I sent out an email that said that one of the episodes I share very often from our podcast is the one with Michael Fedor, where he talks about how much time he devoted social media engagement versus building his email list. And he did the math, he calculated the hours and all that kind of stuff, and just was really able to see how much better it was to build his email list. And he used things like book giveaways where you get to collect a wide audience's email addresses and then add them to your list. And then I think he was seeing like 30%, 3%. I don't remember what it was, but he broke down the numbers in that episode. I think it's episode 50 something, 55 maybe, around there. But then there's always that push of, where do we show up on social media? Are you going to do social media? Is that going to get you anywhere? So that's what we hope to talk about today. So Stephanie, I want you to kick it off. Where are you trying to show up? Where have you showed up and given up on? What's your strategy right now? Any of that feels relevant.
Well, I just finished a 30-day sprint that I did for myself on Instagram just to see, I was kind of challenging myself with, okay, I'm sitting here at a doctor's appointment. Can I put a reel out really fast? And so I was really putting minimal pressure on myself, just trying to do it fast, whatever was happening in the moment. And what I learned was that definitely my posts where they were more personal, more vulnerable, there were a lot more, views on those. And I'm definitely noticing that people are not, liking, or there doesn't seem to be as much of the culture of liking things on Instagram. And maybe that's just my experience, but I feel like people are definitely watching, because you could definitely see, how many impressions and views things are getting. And, I was getting, upwards of 200 or more. And maybe for some of you listening, that doesn't seem like a lot, but for us, that's a lot.
Growth.
Yeah, that's growth. So, we'll go with that. But certainly the ones where I was, putting on my book coach hat a little bit more and wanting to say like, oh, this is what I'd say to you if you said this. There wasn't as much traction with those. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And, I wonder if, some of that is because maybe people are a little shy with AI these days, that, they know people out there are using that to generate ideas. I certainly use ChatGPT to help me with some brainstorming, but I would by no means take it and put it right on to any platform and say like, oh yes, this is my thinking, because it's not my thinking. It's some rhythmic computer that came up with it. But yeah, so that's been interesting. And then I also started a Substack, which most people would say Substack is not social media. But in a way,
once it's turning into it.
But I think if you're over there, you will feel like it is very similar to social media, because it has a space almost like a Facebook page where people can post things you can see, almost like Twitter or X was.
It certainly falls into this discussion of like social media versus email list, because it's kind of the closest thing to a bridge in between the two.
Yes, because you can build an email list there, and it is yours, which is unique, because in a lot of cases that doesn't always happen. But I mean, it's interesting because we actually just finished watching a YouTube video that a friend of ours had sent about how the author Glennon Doyle had been pushed off of Substack. Mm-hmm. And there's part of me, since knowing that exists, that happened to her, and knowing about that I've been questioning it. And some of it has not only been because of that, but also because I feel like there's part of me that has used it as an avoidance from my own writing.
Like from your book?
Yeah, from right.
Okay.
They're like, oh, I don't really have ideas for my book, but I have ideas for this.
When I have to do a Substack this week. What do I spend my time doing that? My writing time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's been kind of interesting to kind of process for myself. And I'm sure some of you listening are familiar with, oh, I cleaned my house has never looked cleaner.
Yes.
And all those
Avoidance.
Yes, all those things we have as writers, like, oh, I need to call a friend or whatever it might be. And so that's been kind of interesting to look at. I'm kind of evaluating, the benefits of being in those spaces. I definitely agree with the idea of focusing more on building an email list. I think that that for sure, in all of the research I followed and all of the people out there who I follow, it always comes back to building the email list. And Elizabeth and I have certainly talked about that. And we're working on that, within the Inspired Writer Collective. And it's definitely not as easy as people make it sound. Like, it's not like you put something out there and all of a sudden, like, woo, like, that's not that easy. It definitely takes work. But I think the return on investment from what I know is far greater than being all over social media. I mean, I'm certainly backing off now from Instagram. I did the 30 days to kind of see what works, but now it's going to be maybe, 1 or 2 days a week. I mean, I'll still be on the platforms. I'm not going to completely abandon it, but definitely going to scale way back. The daily, it's not sustainable.
So the way you use Instagram, are you typically just like posting and then if anyone like comments, then you'll respond to that? Or do you also engage with other people's accounts? Like what's your level of like engagement look like on Instagram? And Substack, I guess.
Yeah. I've definitely been more interactive on Instagram, definitely people who I'm following where I really like their stuff. I do, comment, I am sending DMs and there's definitely.
It's more than just post and ghost.
Yeah. Yeah. And so especially with people who I know, or, I really appreciate what they're putting out there, or I'm connecting with them because I'm curious about something they posted. And then Substack, I have not engaged with the larger community. That might be of benefit. There's part of me that's sort of not sure that that's how I want to use it. And I mean, I'm loving what I'm writing there, but I feel like that could be my newsletter that I just have separately that is built in a different way, especially for as an author. I feel like it would be more beneficial to have my own space, build out my author website. I mean, I have the website, I just haven't built it out yet, and really maximize that like little corner of the internet. Because I know you've started that.
Yeah. Yeah, if you are not reading Stephanie's Substack, Love is Brewing, it is so good and it's so different. I don't know exactly how, but it's so different than all the writing she puts out, even for her email newsletter or anywhere. It's so good every time. So if you subscribe on Substack, if you're not familiar, then you don't have to always go back to Substack to read the latest thing. You get it sent directly to your inbox. So, once a week I get this one from Stephanie and I read it. And even though I'm not writing in contemporary romance and that area is exclusively around her book and her genre and everything that she's writing in, oh my God, it's so good. So I do hope that you'll keep that writing style in whatever way that shows up. And I certainly can see like Substack as being a great way to sort of try something new because there's no cost, right, to it. And so like as far as a newer author who needs to get something going, if you don't want to pay for, an email program or even have an author website, like that could be a decent stand-in for a while, I think. What makes me nervous is just that it's still an algorithm and I just don't want to play the games. But at the same time, it can be really tough to find new people. Like I have, as Stephanie mentioned, I started my author email list back in January, and I'm still sitting at the initial 20 people that I reached out to that I know personally, that, I invited to come and join my author email list. So I hope that at some point, once my book is actually out, then I'm like growing that list. But right now, it's just about getting in the habit of sending out a monthly newsletter and asking, the different spaces where I interact, whether that's as a podcast guest or whatever. I put all that out there and we'll just see what happens. I do wonder if I might get more traction on something like Substack, but I'm also in my newsletter writing very specific things about what's going on in my writing life and with my family. And I like that extra barrier versus just putting it out into the world because I do really protect my family. Um, on as far as like the online space. And so that's where I hesitate around Substack. And I run a blog just on my author website versus putting the blog on Substack. But that could be a way where I could dual post or stop using the website for that. But then I worry about like SEO and traffic and the ways that having a blog optimizes, traffic to your website too. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, it's interesting because one of the people that comes to mind in terms of all is Seth Godin. And if you're familiar with, listener, if you're familiar with his work, he's very much not on social media. And he has had a blog for over 20 years now. It's I have subscribed to it for a long time. They're very short. They go out every day. And I think there is value in having the blog that sends the traffic to your website. I mean, because there is benefit to that. And one of the things that I worry, I mean, even for me on Substack, when I go to look at others and if they ask me to pay, like I'm like, like it doesn't rub me the right way either. That idea that like, oh, I mean, I get that creatives want to make a living and I support that. However, there is part of it where Substack is still a tech company, essentially. And
I also see it as like what you post on Substack is the stuff that you're willing to give away. Like it's the teasers. It's the like,
yes,
here's how you can get a taste of my writing style so that hopefully when I have like a book ready for you that you will want to buy that product. Yeah. I mean, that's certainly how I view my email list. I share, stories that I've cut from the memoir so that those on my email list get those stories. They get a sense of my like author voice and my storytelling style. And even some of the like, a lot of those are earlier, more historical stories. So they get from the younger years and glimpses into the times before my actual memoir takes place. And, so it serves as like a free teaser, right? Like that's how I view like what anyone would post on Substack.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that, I mean, it's your own choice, what you choose to do. And I mean, I'm going to keep writing there for right now because it's a great way for me to try out different things. And, I don't have a huge following, which is fine because that wasn't really the purpose behind it. It is a way to sort of try out new ideas and see how they land. So, I'll hang out there for a little bit. But I do think once I have an author website built out that I'll migrate it over to my own space because there is something too that I think is empowering as a creative, as an author to say like, I created this in my own, this is my space, almost like, you think of your website as your storefront. It's the place where people may not come back there once they're there, maybe one time. But I mean, if you're selling your books there, if you're blogging, if there are different things that you put there, it might be surprising what people will come back to.
Yeah.
But I think what's even more interesting is what Elizabeth has found of being on Thread. I'm on Threads a little bit, but Elizabeth has definitely made more use of its benefits. So
I love Threads, guys. I mean, if you guys are getting on our email list and getting our regular emails, I'm talking about Threads almost every Tuesday email that I send out. because I just have found it really beneficial in finding that writing community. So you guys know, if you've been around for a while, Stephanie and I have tried to build that along with this platform, and it just has not gone anywhere besides just Stephanie and I meeting up to talk virtually or whatever and work on our books. And through Threads, there is a really vibrant writing community and podcasting community. And that is where I have found essentially all of the guests that I have recruited for our podcast, both in the spring season and this upcoming fall season. They've all been through Threads. So I get to watch them post. I get to see what sort of content they're putting out, what kind of information they're sharing on a open platform. I get to interact with them. I find that I get the most follows and basically results, because probably follows are the way you would measure results on Threads, even comments and responses and all of that, when I comment on other people's threads. I am now, because I have a few more followers, I think I just looked at 233. I started it in October, and I wasn't really consistent for a while, but I do have a lot more fun there now. So now when I post a question, then I do get a couple of responses. But for a while, it was just crickets. So I stopped bothering posting anything myself and just really interacted with those other people in my news feed. And I got to have a lot of great conversations. I've been able to find a lot of fantastic people. That's where I've found, I think, all of my podcast guest spots that I've done this year. And I've already recorded, what did I say the other day? 9?
Yes.
I've recorded 9 guest spots this year, and all of those I found through Threads. So I think there's very active engagement because it's all written. There's not a lot of people putting links in. You're not trying to attract people to your page necessarily to then click on your freebie to get on their email list. It's not like that, at least not right now. So get in while the getting's good, because I feel like this is how old Facebook used to be, where you would actually get to see the posts that the people you are following are posting. You also get a mix in of new people, so you're constantly being introduced to new people. And people are really quick in their responses. They're not posting something and then you reply and you don't see anything for even a day. People are routinely, when they post something, you're getting interaction. When you replied, you're getting hearts, you're getting all of this stuff. And I don't know exactly how the algorithm works, but I assume that that's going to be beneficial for the algorithm to see that you're a participant, and therefore your stuff is going to appear more regularly to other people. So yeah, I've gotten great personal benefits from Threads. It's also been really beneficial for the podcast. Now, because that is a group of a lot of times more established writers, I don't know that they're necessarily the target audience for potentially our courses and workshops and other things that we would be offering for those who are just starting out. But I routinely will link to specific podcast episodes when people are asking questions. That's the beauty of it, is people are asking for guidance and help. And so then I'm able to hop on there, and if we had an episode where we covered that topic, or if I have a resource. Just the other day, I talked about how great the scene cards are from Lisa Cron's Story Genius, and I sent them the scene card and an outline that I had written from a portion of the memoir course about how to use the scene card, and I emailed it to them. So I've developed a connection there. I've now have someone that I've given, just a small bit of information to, and they followed me. And so now we're building relationships, actual real interactions. And the same thing is true now that we're meeting with the podcast guests for the fall.
Yep.
When we actually sit down with them face to face, that's not the first time I'm interacting with them. I already have a history with them on Threads. So it's just, I think it's really adding to the whole, I don't remember whose idea it is, the know, like, and trust aspect. I
don't
forget
know.
who the originator was of that concept of how you have to convert people to potentially use your services, buy your products, etc.
It's a very common, I think it's
Okay.
just sort of one of those common knowledge pieces. And I mean, I'm sure somebody originates it somewhere, but I think, in general, I think definitely like you want to build that.
Yeah. So I feel like that's really doing a lot there. It's certainly more productive than anything I'd tried on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, or on YouTube. I tried doing YouTube shorts. It didn't really seem to make much of a difference.
Yeah.
We put our clips on YouTube. I don't know that we're getting any sort of major traction of new subscribers there. It really just depends on like the guests we have and how much they promote the episodes as to whether we get like a slew of new subscribers. Otherwise, it's just a very slow trickle. But in other news, we have been learning from these podcast guests that our name is getting out there, which is really cool through ways that like we wouldn't even suspect. So that's really great to hear those stories. We love getting that feedback about how you found us, how you heard about us, because honestly, to be frank, we feel like we're talking into a void sometimes. And so it's so nice to get that affirmation that you guys hear us, that you enjoy the content that we're sharing. And we would love to know what questions you have. So always send those our way if there's something you want us to cover or address on the podcast. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep borrowing the questions I see over and over again on threads and addressing those issues and those things that I see that other writers are experiencing in their writing journeys. But thank you for tuning in for this summer episode, and we'll hope you'll be back next week for another short one.